governments of the future can't afford a weak public service.
It means that not everyone can fit into public service.
Public service is hard. People think of government workers as among the least qualified. They trade off stability for capability.
Like this, how is artificial intelligence being used in your country for human resources management in the public service?
Tools like AI to help us identify the best potential employees that we can for positions.
Today our guest is Дэвид М, the Dean of Maxwell School of Civics and Public Affairs, Syracuse Universities. Thank you for joining our podcast today. We're very glad to see you here. And my first question is, what is the importance of such forums, do you think?
I think one of the benefits of forums like this is you get to meet new individuals who come from very different contexts with different experiences, and yet you end up learning that there are more things in common. The challenges that we want to confront, the opportunities we want to be able to take advantage of, and you begin to learn from one another. You begin to see how interconnected the world really is. And what you begin to really do is create productive partnerships that hopefully can be mutually beneficial over a long period of time. So no matter how the media may be reporting on the politics of the day in any one particular country or in regions of the world, forums like this can bring us back to how do we work together? How do we collaborate on ideas? How do we learn from one another? And in that learning from one another, it's so critical that we actually listen and understand what's happening in one context, and then begin to talk about, hey, here are maybe ways that we can work together in productive ways.
Yeah, that's a very good point where that we're learning from each other. And I know you as one of the speakers today. What is your topic? What are you going to talk about?
So in the panel that I was on, the focus was on how do we think about new forms of emerging technologies and what impact might they have on human resource systems, and especially the use of those systems by government, and how do we help to strengthen the public workforce of the future? And are there other kinds of benefits that can come from these new forms of technology and how HR systems are being used?
Okay, if we're talking about the technologies and everything like this, how is artificial intelligence being used in your country for human resources management in the public service?
So I think one of the best ways that it's being used, so in the United States, unlike some countries, we're a very decentralized country. So we have a large central government, that is our federal government based in Washington, D.C. But then we have 50 state governments, and within every one of those states, there are also a whole series of local governments. One of the things that new forms of technology like AI do is they help enable us to move from providing administrative types of support to being more of a strategic enabler. And what I mean by that is that we're now learning more broadly how different governmental units are actually working together. Too often, government can operate in silos. And sometimes people talk about what does government look like at the enterprise level, whether that's a whole of government or in a particular state or province or region. By understanding how others are dealing with these types of issues, whether it's compliance, whether it's selecting new job candidates, whether it's coaching people in terms of their own skill development, one of the things that we often don't do well in government is actually knowledge sharing. And many government employees, especially those who have an interest in leadership and building teams that are actually comprised of quite different people, they often don't have a lot of best practices or case studies to take advantage of. Artificial intelligence actually creates for us a lot more data that we can begin to work with. We can begin to say, hey, is there a best practice on how some state governments are thinking about the development of job descriptions, or is artificial intelligence being able to help sort through many candidates' applications? And do we feel like there's some real rigor and integrity? Are we actually saving time, being more efficient, using new tools like AI to help us identify the best potential employees that we can for positions? So for me, that's a real source of excitement.
So are you currently using AI in order to recruit new civil servants? Can you give us an example, maybe two examples of how exactly you're using AI in the recruiting process?
Yeah. So oftentimes when people would see a job description, they might write their letter of application. They might try to use as many words from the job description as possible. When people think about AI, they imagine this technology going through many applications and somehow scoring those applications on the number of times that a word is mentioned that's also mentioned in the job description. So there's a big difference between a job description or a job announcement and applicants and actually job analysis. And what I mean by that is, if I say to you, I'm looking for an individual that has these kinds of skills, it's very easy often for applicants to overrepresent the likelihood that they have it.
Yeah,
so if you said to me, hey, are you very good with data? I'm great with data. Hey, are you very good with managing people? Yes, I manage a lot of people. But then the real question becomes, okay, that's my assessment. Can you actually use these new tools to validate how much experience does he have? Under what conditions does he have that experience? Does he have any results that he can show associated with that experience? And that changes us. That moves from very biased self-assessments, often by candidates, to actually looking at skills. And it's those skills, those capabilities, that actually present the best opportunity for developing the future public sector workforce of the future, focused on value creation as opposed to compliance with activities, with processes and structures. And so I like to think of it as the difference between outputs and outcomes. How are we going to actually see impact? And we're seeing some early stage evidence of how state and local governments and even some federal agencies in the United States are using these tools to recruit people more efficiently, to hire them in a shorter period of time, and then to actually evaluate where they're a better fit within the organization. And to me, that's a source of experimentation. The early stage results from the organizations that I'm most familiar with, like the Department of Defense, actually are quite promising.
Oh, thank you. And I have one more question. What one innovation could most transform HR in public service?
So I think what I'm going to say is a decidedly not technical response, which is it would be so much better for the civil service if we had integrated HR systems at the enterprise level. And what I mean by that is right now, at least in the United States and with the states that I'm familiar with, we have very siloed systems. And what we lack is an actual knowledge management system. If we think about an analog like healthcare, over the last 10 years, physicians now have access to what are called electronic medical records. So I might see my general physician for just a routine checkup. I might see my orthopedic for a problem I'm having as I age, right? And so physicians now have more of that information, so they can have more of a common operating picture. They can understand what's really going on, not only with my regular health update, but physically, how am I doing? It would be really wonderful to see these kind of integrated enterprise approaches to knowledge management, looking across a set of systems. What we should never do is see that we've hired someone because of a transfer and that the person is actually not a strong performer, but the HR systems had really weak incentives for dismissal and accountability around performance, and so therefore people just transfer you somewhere else, right? We should be able to now reward outstanding behavior, look at work results that maybe we're less happy with, and say, what do we need to do to help make this person a stronger performer? Is it new forms of professional development or training? And then for those individuals for which their performance is weak, how do we help them find an opportunity outside of the government because it may not be a good fit? And I think this is where these kind of enterprise level integrated data systems have a lot of promise to strengthen the workforce and to make sure that we're actually executing on our mission and achieving greater results for the benefit of all people.
So as I understand you, it means that not everyone can fit into public service.
I think that's exactly right. I think public service is hard. It's challenging. There are complex problems. You're working on behalf of a set of constituencies and beneficiaries who have very different needs and goals. But you're also working in a system that at times can be highly politicized. And I don't mean politicization as a bad thing, but I mean there are political preferences, there are political goals, and those may often conflict. And so you need the most qualified workforce. And in some environments, people think of government workers as among the least qualified because they trade off stability for capability. And I would argue governments of the future can't afford a weak public service. They need the best candidates, and they need to empower them with leadership and opportunity and responsibility so they can make impact for the greater good.
So I know that you're from Syracuse University. Do you have how specific is your program in order to meet these governmental goals or some requirements, something like this?
Yeah.
Do you have something special?
So we're really fortunate. We have the #1 ranked public administration program in the United States, and it's been the top ranked program since the rankings have begun. And it's a department and a program within a large school, the Maxwell School, and one of the things we take really seriously is constantly updating our curriculum. And that curriculum means that it's not just faculty talking to faculty and faculty talking to students. It's learning from practitioners about how their work is changing and making sure that we can respond and be an active partner in training the next generation of the workforce.
And I have my own question. How do you connect research and hiring new people?
Yeah, so research I often think of as one of the best forms of experiential learning. Sometimes I think research gets a bad name because people think of research and the results very much in isolation. In other words, that you're not translating the results and trying to put them into action. What we do with the research is constantly evaluate, how is this relevant? How does it change in positive ways? How does it help us to be more impactful? And I think when you have a program that is research-oriented but very applied and translational, you stand a better chance of actually impacting student learning and the work they're going to do in really positive ways.
What trends in public administration and human resource management do you consider key for the next couple of years?
So I think so often when people think of human resource management, they think of a particular unit within a particular organization. And what they miss are all the broader public-private partnership opportunities to be working with civil society organizations, NGOs, private partners, different levels of government, working across ministries. And I think the only way that you have a truly strong public service and an effective workforce of the future is when you're actually working across those sector boundaries, across different industry and policy areas, and you're trying to integrate that learning across.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
It was my privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.